All right, the math is complete on our planter variability check. But before we roll into the final data, a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, the reason why I like the planter variability check is it gives you the math, it gives you the statistics, it gives you the yield data that you can digest that. But when you see the visual of the ears of each row, 1/1000th of an acre, that visual can stick with you. That visual has an immediate impact on the farmer and good, bad, or indifferent. That's really what we're looking for, is try to see what's out there and give the farmers something they can walk away with. If you're gonna manage something, you have to be able to measure that something, whether it's your checkbook or your weight or your win-loss record or whatever. You have to be able to measure that somehow. And it may not be perfect, but the planter variability check and giving you the math and the visual, I think that's just a great way to go about it. And the reason I lean on this test is I talk to so many farmers and I'll say, hey, how's your planter doing? And of course, every single one of them says, well, it's great. My planter is amazing. And I'll say, that's great to hear. I'm sure it is. How do you know that? Well, I've got good yields. And I said, I didn't ask you what your yields were. I asked you, how is your corn planter performing? And how do you know? Well, it's usually when you take your foot off the gas pedal on that conversation, because they don't usually know. When you get into margins that are this tight in the row crop world, now all of a sudden little things add up and they matter. So I'm not saying you need technology. I'm not saying you don't. It's not what you got, it's how you use it. So if the planter you have rolling into the next planting season, if that's what you got, how do we make the most out of what you have and get as many harvestable ears into that combine at the end of the season? And it all starts with that planter pass. How did we do this planter variability check? Well, real quick, first thing we did was got permission, right? That's a good place to start. Good young farmer in the area. I told him what I was up to. He said, absolutely, take this farm down this road, use this entrance. I said, okay. Went down to the store, spent $10. I bought some garbage bags and a pack of gum. Now, little footnote, don't use the tall kitchen garbage bags, the white ones. They're not strong enough. Go get the black lawn and leaf ones. They'll be able to handle it. So skip the gum, get the bigger bags, and you're still around $10. Went to the field, went through the headlands, and walked around a little bit and figured out where row number 1 was at. Usually it isn't too hard to figure out where row number 1 is. So once I found row number 1, I walked in about another 20 or 30 feet, measured 17 feet 5 inches, because we're in 30-inch rows, pulled those ears, put them in a bag, labeled them. Row 2, pulled those ears, put them in a bag, labeled them. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It was a 24-row planter, 24 bags. That easy. Carrying those bags out through 120 foot of headlands was not easy, but we got it done. Brought them back here, laid them out. And I was originally just gonna count the rows around and the kernels long, but when I started to get some feedback on social media, I'm like, you know what, they're right. We need to weigh each ear. So we weighed each ear. We took those weights. We did the math equation to take them from 30% moisture, which is about where we're sitting, down to 15.5. Deducted 20% to account for the weight of the cob. Maybe it should have been 25, maybe 20 is fine. I don't know, but when you treat every single row the same, to me, statistically, that keeps it a valid number. And then that's how we came up with our yield per acre for each individual row. Math. Okay. So with that, let's get into our numbers, and then we'll do a rundown of the rows that are on the floor and tell you what each row yielded. So our plot average was 281, which for me is pretty good for Northern Illinois, Southern Wisconsin. We've had a little bit of everything for weather this year, so to come away with a 281 plot average, I'm pretty happy. The highest row yielded 310. Again, that's very respectable. That's good news around here. The low was 228, which means in a 60-foot planter swath, 17 feet 5 inches, 1/1000th of a row, we have an 82 bushel variance from our best row to our worst row. draw the conclusion that you want. Statistically, I couldn't find where this side versus that side, pinch rows versus wings, there was all over the board. It's not the seed, because the seed is the seed. The good seed doesn't know to go to the good row. The bad seed doesn't know, well, let's all go to this bad row and then we'll all look bad. I mean, the seed is the seed across the way. Was it a cart path from last fall? Was it tillage? Perhaps, I don't know. A couple people said, boy, to really be accurate, you should do that test in a couple different spots in the same field. Well, you're right, you should. I don't really have the manpower for that, and there's other planters that I want to chase down and see what kind of results I can get my hands on. So having said that, you kind of have to park your ego a little bit when you're looking at tests like this and you want to go look at your own and say, okay, this is the best we can do. What are we going to learn from it? And then you go further down that road and continue to learn about your operation. So with that, let's go look at the ears. You know, this row here, I think it's row 7, 243. There's not as many ears, but the ones that are there are very respectable. And I think that's what a flex hybrid can do for you. And then as we move on more to the middle of the planter, you can see 306, 308, and our highest is 310, and you see that red arrow right there. That is the center of the planter. So you can kind of go backwards and do the math. I mean, there's your pinch rows right there, and I just don't think that they suffered that bad. As you continue on to the right side of the planter, 305, 306, and there's your 228, row 18. Yeah, it's down on the number of ears per row, but it's got some shorties and it's got some uglies. And those uglies, they add up pretty quick. So those 2 rows there were problem children. And then as you go further out on the wing, they come back to pretty darn respectable. So that's what they look like. And then we'll try to give you this shot here out on the floor. So that's a visual representation. You know, you roll through and your yield monitor says, wow, 281, we're looking good. Yeah, but there's some variance in there. There's some room for improvements. So like I said, you just kind of have to park your ego and be a student of the crop and say, all right, this is what's in front of me. What can we do better? Do we need to make a change in the hardware, in the software, in our timing? Guys, I don't know. That's your farm. It's up to you. I'm just the guy that worries about planter performance, tries to bring you new ideas like this for you to figure out. So with that, stay tuned. We'll be doing more of these. And if you do some of your own, I'd like to see the results.